The transport pod fell through the dark sky like a metal seed. Inside, Yuna checked her weapons one last time. Her plasma blade was fully charged. Her armor fit tight against her body. She was ready. The pod hit the ground hard. The door opened and cold air rushed in. Yuna jumped out before the dust settled. Her boots touched alien soil, and she started moving immediately. This planet was called Kepler 442b. It had 2 suns, but right now both were still below the horizon. The sky was purple and orange at the edges. Dawn was coming, but it was not here yet. Yuna was 17 years old. She had been fighting since she was 11. Today was her 200th mission. 200 times she had been dropped onto hostile worlds. 200 times she had faced creatures that wanted to kill her. 200 times she had survived. She moved through the fog like a ghost. Her training had made her silent. Her experience had made her deadly. Behind her, 2 more figures emerged from the darkness. Do-hyun was tall and thin, carrying a long rifle on his back. He never spoke much, but his aim was perfect. He could hit a target from 2 kilometers away without missing. Himmin was shorter and louder. He carried a heavy bag full of explosives. He liked to joke that he could blow up anything, and he was usually right. These 3 had been a team for 4 years. They trusted each other completely. In their world, trust was the difference between life and death. "Nest is ahead," Yuna said quietly. Her voice came through their communication devices. 12 targets confirmed. We move in triangle formation. Do-hyun, find high ground. Himmin, prepare charges for the secondary tunnels. I take the main entrance. Nobody argued. They never did. The creatures they hunted were called Reapers. They were nightmares made of muscle and bone. 6 legs, each ending in claws that could cut through metal. Armored skin that could stop most weapons. Jaws strong enough to bite through a starship's hull. The alien coalition that ruled most of the galaxy considered a single Reaper to be a planetary emergency. They would send entire fleets to deal with one. They would evacuate cities. They would sometimes destroy whole moons just to make sure the creature was dead. Humans had a different approach. Humans sent Yuna. She reached the edge of the nest and stopped. The Reapers had built their home inside a natural cave system. The rocks around the entrance were marked with deep scratches. Some of those scratches were recent. The beasts were active. Yuna pulled out a small device and threw it into the cave. It floated in the air and projected a map of the tunnels below. 12 heat signatures appeared on the display. 12 Reapers, sleeping in the darkness. In position, Do-hyun's voice came through. He was somewhere high above, his rifle aimed and ready. "Charge is set," Himmin reported. "Ready to seal the back exits on your command." Yuna took a deep breath. The air smelled like sulfur and blood. The Reapers had been hunting local wildlife. Bones were scattered near the entrance. "On my mark," she said. 3, 2, 1, mark. Himmin's charges exploded deep in the mountain. The ground shook. Dust fell from above. And then the screaming started. The Reapers woke up angry. They poured out of the main entrance like water from a broken dam. Their eyes glowed red in the dim light. Their claws scraped against stone. Do-hyun's rifle cracked 3 times. 3 Reapers fell with holes in their heads. Yuna moved forward. Her plasma blade came alive with a blue light. It hummed in her hands like a living thing. She had used this weapon for 6 years. It was part of her now. The first Reaper lunged at her. She stepped to the side and cut. The blade went through armor like it was paper. The creature fell in 2 pieces. The second and third came together. Yuna ducked under one set of claws and jumped over another. She spun in the air and brought her blade down. Another Reaper died. Time stopped making sense. It always did during combat. Yuna existed only in the moment, reacting to movement, reading patterns, finding weaknesses. Her body moved faster than thought. Cut, dodge, roll, strike. Another Reaper fell. Cut, block, jump, cut, another. Do-Hyun's rifle kept cracking in the distance. Every shot was a kill. That was just who he was. Hymin threw a grenade into a group of 3 Reapers trying to flank Yuna. The explosion sent them flying. One survived and tried to crawl toward her. She ended its suffering with a quick thrust. The last Reaper was the biggest. It was probably the alpha of the nest. Its armor was thicker. Its claws were longer. It looked at Yuna with something that might have been hatred. It charged. Yuna did not run. She ran toward it. At the last moment, she slid under its body, dragging her blade along its belly. The creature's momentum carried it forward. It crashed into the rocks and did not get up. Silence. Yuna stood still, breathing hard. Black blood covered her arms and face. Steam rose from her blade. The twin suns had started to rise, painting the sky in gold and pink. 12 confirmed kills, Do-Hyun reported. His voice was calm, as always. That was beautiful, Hymin laughed. You should enter the Olympics. The Murder Olympics. Yuna did not laugh. She rarely did after combat. Instead, she looked at her communicator. The time was 0630 hours. We need to move, she said. I have class in 90 minutes. Do-Hyun and Hymin exchanged glances. They had known Yuna for years, but this was still strange to them. For the past month, after every mission, she said the same thing. Class, school, education. Yuna walked back toward the transport pod. Her armor was damaged. Her muscles ached. There was a cut on her arm that would need medical attention. But none of that mattered. Today was her first day at a real school. Today she would try to be a normal student. Today she would pretend to be something she had not been since she was a child. Human. The transport pod lifted off the ground and shot toward the stars. Inside, Yuna cleaned herself as best as she could. She changed from her combat armor into a school uniform. The fabric felt strange against her skin. Too soft, too light. She looked at herself in a small mirror. The scar on her jaw was visible. She could not hide it. She decided not to try. Her communicator buzzed. A message from command. Congratulations on mission success. Welcome to civilian life, Agent Yuna. Try not to kill any classmates. It was meant as a joke. Yuna did not find it funny. She closed her eyes and tried to remember what normal people did. They talked about weather. They worried about grades. They had friends and families and futures. Yuna had a plasma blade and 200 confirmed kills. But maybe, she thought, maybe she could learn. Maybe the skills that kept her alive in battle could help her survive something even more terrifying. High school. The pod entered Earth's atmosphere. Below, the lights of Seoul glittered like stars that had fallen to the ground. Somewhere down there was a classroom waiting for her. Somewhere down there were people who had never seen a Reaper, never held a weapon, never watched the sun rise over a field of bodies. Yuna wondered what they would think of her. She wondered what she would think of them. The pod began its descent, and Yuna prepared for the strangest battle of her life. Hannah arrived at school early, like she always did. The Seoul Interstellar Academy was the best school on Earth, and she had worked her entire life to get here. Every morning she came early. Every night she studied late. She would not waste this chance. The academy was a beautiful place. Glass towers rose toward the sky. Gardens filled with flowers from a dozen different planets surrounded the main building. Students from wealthy families walked through the halls, talking about their futures in diplomacy, law, and galactic politics. Hannah was not from a wealthy family. Her father was a translator for the government. Her mother taught languages at a small college. They had saved for years to afford the academy's fees. Hannah carried their hopes on her shoulders like a weight. She sat in her usual seat, third row from the front, next to the window. From here, she could see the city and the sky beyond. Sometimes, at night, she watched ships leave Earth's atmosphere, carrying soldiers to distant wars. She often wondered about those soldiers. What were they like? What did they see? Today, she would find out. The classroom filled slowly. Taiho arrived with his usual group of friends. He was the class president, tall and handsome, with a smile that made everyone like him. His father was a senator. His future was already written. Minji came next, surrounded by her followers. She was the most popular girl in school, and she knew it. Her clothes were expensive. Her hair was perfect. Her eyes were cruel. "Did you hear?" Minji said loudly, making sure everyone could listen. "We are getting a transfer student. A field operative." The room went quiet. Field operatives were legends. Everyone knew about them, but almost nobody had ever seen one. They were the soldiers who fought on alien worlds. They were the ones who faced monsters so the rest of humanity could sleep safely. They were also, according to most stories, completely insane. "My father told me about them," Taiho said. "They recruit children, train them from a young age. Most of them do not survive to adulthood. They are weapons," Minji added with a small smile. "Human weapons. I wonder what happens when you put a weapon in a classroom." Hannah said nothing. She just listened and watched. The door opened and the headmaster walked in. He was a thin old man with gray hair and serious eyes. Behind him was a girl. The classroom fell completely silent. The girl was about 17, the same age as everyone else. She wore the standard academy uniform, a white shirt and dark blue skirt. Her hair was black and cut short. Her face was calm, almost empty. But something was wrong. No, not wrong. Different. Hannah could not explain it at first. The girl looked normal. She moved normally. She breathed normally. But there was something about the way she stood that made Hannah's heart beat faster. Something about the way her eyes moved across the room, stopping briefly on each face, each door, each window. She was mapping the room, Hannah realized. Looking for exits. Looking for threats. And then Hannah noticed the scar. A thin white line running along the girl's jaw, from her ear almost to her chin. It was old and faded, but it was there. "Class," the headmaster said, "this is your new classmate. She's transferring from active duty to complete her formal education. Please welcome her." The girl bowed politely. When she spoke, her voice was soft and steady. "My name is Yuna. Please take care of me." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Hannah felt the hair on her arms rise. This girl, Yuna, looked ordinary. She sounded ordinary. But every part of Hannah's brain was screaming that she was looking at something dangerous. Something that should not be in a classroom. The headmaster pointed to an empty seat in the back. "Please sit there, Yuna." Yuna nodded and walked to her seat. Her footsteps made no sound. She moved between the desks like water flowing around stones. When she sat down, she positioned herself with her back to the wall, facing the door. Hannah watched all of this. She could not look away. The class continued, but nobody was paying attention to the lesson. Everyone kept looking back at Yuna. She sat perfectly still, her hands folded on her desk, her eyes forward. She did not fidget. She did not yawn. She barely seemed to blink. During break time, the students gathered in small groups to whisper. "She is creepy," Minji announced. "Did you see how she looked at us? Like she was deciding which one to eat first." "Be nice," Taiho said, but his voice was uncertain. She's just adjusting. It must be strange for her. Strange for her? Minji laughed. She has probably killed more people than our entire class combined. I do not want to be near someone like that. Hana stood up from her desk. She did not know why. Her body moved before her brain could stop it. Where are you going? Minji asked. To say hello, Hana replied. She walked to the back of the room where Yuna was sitting alone. Up close, she could see more details. Yuna's hands had calluses from years of holding weapons. There were faint scars on her fingers, barely visible. Her eyes were dark brown, almost black, and they watched Hana approach without any emotion. Hi, Hana said. I am Hana. Welcome to the academy. Yuna looked at her for a long moment. Then she tilted her head slightly, like a bird examining something interesting. Thank you, Yuna said. You are the first person to speak to me directly. Everyone is just nervous, Hana explained. We do not meet many field operatives. I understand. I make people uncomfortable. Hana did not know how to respond to that. It was true, but saying so felt rude. Can I sit here? Hana asked, pointing to the empty desk next to Yuna. Yuna's eyes widened slightly. It was the first expression Hana had seen on her face, and it looked like surprise. You want to sit next to me? If that is okay. Yuna was quiet for several seconds. Then, slowly, she nodded. Okay, Hana sat down. The two of them did not speak, but somehow the silence felt less heavy than before. The rest of the day was strange. Teachers tried to include Yuna in discussions, but she answered every question in the shortest way possible. Yes, no, I do not know. When asked about her experiences in the field, she said only, that information is classified. At lunch, Yuna did not eat in the cafeteria. She took her food and disappeared somewhere. Hana thought about following her, but decided against it. Some people needed space. After school, Hana saw Yuna standing at the front gate. She was looking up at the sky, watching a transport ship leave the atmosphere. Her face, for just a moment, showed something that might have been longing. Do you miss it? Hana asked, walking up beside her. Yuna did not look at her. Miss what? Out there. The fighting. The missions. Yuna considered the question for a long time. I miss being useful. I miss knowing exactly what to do. Here, everything is confusing. There are rules I do not understand. People say things they do not mean. They smile when they are angry. They are polite when they hate you. That is called society, Hana said with a small laugh. It is exhausting. Hana nodded. Yes, it is. But you get used to it. Yuna finally looked at her. Those dark eyes studied Hana's face, searching for something. Hana did not know if she found it. Why are you talking to me? Yuna asked. The others are afraid. You should be afraid too. Should I be? I have killed 200 creatures since I was 11 years old. I have seen things that would make most people lose their minds. I am not normal. I may never be normal. Hana thought about this. She thought about all the warnings she had heard. She thought about the fear in her classmates' eyes. Then she shrugged. Nobody is normal, she said. Some people just hide it better than others. For the first time since she arrived, Yuna smiled. It was a small smile, barely there, but it was real. You are strange, Yuna said. Thank you. They stood together in silence, watching the sky turn orange as the sun began to set. Two girls from completely different worlds, standing at the edge of something new. Hana did not know what the future would bring. She did not know if Yuna would ever fit in, or if the others would ever accept her. But in that moment, watching the light change and feeling the cool evening air, she knew one thing. This was going to be an interesting year. Weeks passed. Yuna tried her best to be a normal student, but normal was harder than any battle she had ever fought. The coursework was easy. She had studied tactical xenobiology since she was 12. She knew more about alien species than most of her teachers. Mathematics came naturally to her because calculating bullet trajectories required advanced geometry. History was just a list of wars she had memorized as training material. No, the academics were not the problem. People were the problem. Every day, Yuna noticed the whispers. They followed her down the halls like shadows. Students moved out of her way when she walked past. Teachers watched her with careful eyes. Nobody wanted to be her partner for group projects. One day in physical education class, the instructor asked everyone to pair up for a sparring exercise. When no one moved toward Yuna, the instructor hesitated. "I can spar alone," Yuna offered. "That is not how the exercise works," the instructor said. "Then I will spar against the instructor." She did not mean it as a challenge, but that was how everyone heard it. The instructor was a former military officer, tall and muscular. He had probably never lost a match against a student. He lost to Yuna in 4 seconds. She did not hurt him badly. She just moved too fast for him to react. One moment he was in fighting stance. The next he was on the ground with his arm locked behind his back. Yuna released him immediately and apologized. The instructor said it was fine, but he did not meet her eyes for the rest of the class. After that, people whispered even more. Tejo tried to be friendly. He was the class president, and he believed it was his duty to make everyone feel welcome. One afternoon, he approached Yuna in the library. "Hey," he said with his best smile. "A few of us are going to a cafe after school. Do you want to come?" Yuna looked up from her book. "Why? What do you mean, why?" "It will be fun. You can get to know people." "People do not want to know me. They are afraid of me." Taiho's smile flickered. "That is not true. They just need time." "You are afraid of me too," Yuna said calmly. "Your heart rate increased when you walked over here. Your pupils are dilated. You are sweating slightly even though the room is cool. These are signs of fear." Taiho stared at her. He tried to keep smiling but could not. Eventually, he just walked away. Yuna watched him go and felt something she could not name. It was not sadness exactly. It was more like the feeling of standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down at a fall you could not survive. Minji was worse than the others. She did not avoid Yuna. Instead, she targeted her. "I heard you sleep with a knife under your pillow," Minji said loudly during lunch one day. "Is that true? Do you dream about killing things?" Yuna did not respond. She just kept eating. "I also heard that operatives sometimes go crazy," Minji continued. "That they cannot tell the difference between enemies and normal people. Should we be worried? Are you going to snap one day and attack us?" "I have excellent self-control," Yuna said quietly. "That is what they all say before they snap." Minji's friends laughed. Other students watched but said nothing. This was the social order. Minji was at the top, and anyone she targeted was at the bottom. Only Hana refused to participate. Every day, Hana sat next to Yuna in class. Every day, she said hello in the morning and goodbye in the evening. She did not push for conversation. She did not ask uncomfortable questions. She just stayed. "Why do you keep being nice to me?" Yuna asked one afternoon. "Because I want to," Hana replied simply. "That does not make sense. Being my friend will hurt your social standing. Minji already gives you dirty looks. I do not care about social standing." Yuna studied her face, looking for deception. She found none. "You are telling the truth." "Yes." "Why?" Hana thought for a moment. "Because my parents taught me to judge people by their actions, not by what others say about them. And you have never done anything bad to anyone here. You have just been quiet." I do not know how to be anything else. Then be quiet. I do not mind. That evening, Yuna went to the rooftop of the academy. It was against the rules to be there after hours, but she had disabled the security system on her first day. Old habits died hard. She sat on the edge and looked at the stars. Somewhere up there, Do-hyun and Haemin were still fighting. They had been reassigned to a new squad after she left. She wondered if they missed her. She wondered if they were still alive. Footsteps behind her. Yuna identified them instantly. Light, careful, hesitant. Huh. How did you know I was here? Yuna asked without turning around. I saw you disable the security camera in the stairwell. It was not hard to figure out where you were going. Yuna almost smiled. You noticed that? I notice a lot of things. Hana sat down next to her, leaving a respectful distance between them. For a while, neither of them spoke. They just watched the stars together. Can I ask you something? Hana said finally. Yes. What was it like? Being out there? Yuna thought about the question. Nobody had ever asked her that before. The briefing officers asked about mission details. Doctors asked about injuries. Nobody asked what it was like. It was simple, she said slowly. Clear. There were enemies, and we killed them. There were teammates, and we protected them. I knew exactly what I was supposed to do every second of every day. That sounds easy in a way. It was. That is the strange thing. Fighting monsters is easy. Sitting in a classroom, having conversations, understanding jokes, that is hard. Out there, I knew who I was. Here, I do not know anything. Hannah was quiet for a moment. Who were you out there? I was a weapon. And here? Yuna turned to look at her. In the starlight, her eyes were soft, almost sad. I do not know. I think that is why I came back. To find out if there is something else. Something more. Do you regret being an operative? This question hit harder than any enemy ever had. Yuna felt it in her chest, a pain that had no physical source. My parents volunteered me, she said. When the Reapers first appeared, the government asked for children with certain genetic markers. Children who might be able to fight. My parents said yes. They said it was for the good of humanity. They said I would be a hero. Were you? I do not know. I saved millions of lives. I killed hundreds of creatures that would have destroyed cities. But I missed growing up. I missed having friends, going to school, being normal. I do not know what music is popular. I do not know how to talk about feelings. I do not know how to be anything except a soldier. Tears were forming in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. She had not cried since she was 11 years old. She did not know if she still could. Hannah reached out and touched her hand. Just briefly, just for a moment. But it was the first gentle touch Yuna had felt in years. You are more than a soldier, Hannah said. You came back. You are trying. That takes more courage than fighting any monster. Yuna looked at Hannah's hand, then at her face. How do you know? Because I can see it. Everyone else sees a weapon. I see a girl who is scared and tired and trying to figure out who she is. That is not a weapon. That is a person. The words hit Yuna like a physical force. She had to look away, back at the stars, to keep control of herself. Every morning, she said, her voice barely a whisper, I wake up and I think about all the creatures I have killed. And I think something is still alive because I exist. Someone is safe because of what I did. That has to mean something. It does, Hannah agreed. But you are not just what you did in the past. You are also what you choose to do now. Yuna finally let herself smile. A real smile, small but true. You are very wise for someone who has never left Earth. I read a lot of books. They sat together until the moon rose and the air grew cold. Then they went back inside, walking down the quiet halls of the academy. At the door to her room, Yuna stopped. Hana. Yes? Thank you. Hana smiled. That is what friends are for. Friends? Yuna tested the word in her mind. She had never had a friend before, not really. Though Hyun and Himin were squad mates, brothers in arms. But Hana was different. Hana chose to be near her. Hana saw her as a person as she lay in bed that night. Yuna realized something important. The emptiness she had felt since leaving active duty was starting to fill. Slowly, piece by piece, she was becoming something new. She was not just a weapon anymore. She was learning to be human. The day started like any other. Yuna woke at 5 in the morning, exercised for 2 hours, and arrived at school before most teachers. Hana met her at the gate with 2 cups of coffee. They had developed a routine. You look tired, Hana said. I had dreams, Yuna replied. She did not explain what kind. She never did. Morning classes passed slowly. Mathematics, history, galactic politics. Yuna took notes and answered questions when asked. She was trying to participate more. Hana had told her it would help her fit in. It was during lunch that everything changed. Yuna was eating in the cafeteria, sitting with Hana at a corner table. For the first time, she had agreed to eat with other people nearby. It felt uncomfortable, but she was learning that growth required discomfort. Then she felt it. It was a vibration in the floor, so small that nobody else noticed. But Yuna's body was trained to detect threats. Every muscle in her body went rigid. Something is wrong, she said. Hana looked at her. What do you mean? There is something below us. Something big. The lights flickered. Students looked up, confused. The vibration came again, stronger this time. Then the alarm started. Red lights flashed across the ceiling. A mechanical voice filled the air. Alert. Biological threat detected in the underground transport hub. All students proceed to emergency evacuation points. This is not a drill. Panic erupted. Students jumped from their seats and ran toward the exits. Teachers shouted instructions that nobody followed. The cafeteria became a sea of screaming bodies. Yuna stood perfectly still. She closed her eyes and listened. Below the screaming, below the alarms, she heard it. A sound she knew better than her own heartbeat. A deep, rumbling growl. The sound of claws scraping against metal. Reaper, she said. Hana grabbed her arm. What? There is a Reaper in the building? That is impossible. How would a Reaper get to Earth? Yuna did not know. Reapers were not smart enough to stow away on ships. They could not survive in space on their own. There was only one explanation. It followed me, she whispered. It tracked my biosignature. She had heard of this before. Some Reapers could imprint on a target. If they failed to kill that target, they would hunt it across any distance. Across systems. Across years. One of the creatures she thought she had killed must have survived. And now it was here. We need to evacuate, Hana said, pulling her toward the door. No. Yuna gently removed Hana's hand. The evacuation routes go through the transport hub. That is where the Reaper is. If people go that way, they will die. Then what do we do? Yuna looked at the chaos around them. Students were crying. Teachers were trying to restore order. None of them had any idea what they were about to face. I stop it, Yuna said. She started walking toward the basement stairs. Hana ran after her. You do not have weapons. You do not have armor. You cannot fight that thing alone. I have fought worse with less. Yuna, please. Just wait for the military. They will send soldiers. By the time they arrive, everyone in the evacuation tunnels will be dead. Yuna stopped and turned to face Hana. This is what I was made for. This is why I exist. Go to the roof and wait for rescue. I will find you when it is over, and if you do not come back..." Yuna hesitated. She had never worried about dying before. Death was just a possibility, a risk factor to be calculated. But looking at Hana's face, seeing the fear and the care there, she felt something new. She wanted to come back. She wanted to survive. Not for the mission, but for herself. "I will come back," she said. And for the first time, she meant it. Yuna ran down the stairs. The lower levels of the academy were dark. The power was failing. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls. She reached the maintenance level and found a storage room. Inside were tools, welding torches, metal cutters, industrial equipment. She grabbed a plasma cutter designed for cutting through starship hulls. It was not a weapon, but it would burn hot enough to hurt a Reaper. Then she heard the screaming. Human screaming. Yuna ran. The transport hub was a large underground chamber where students could catch shuttles to different parts of the city. Right now, it was a slaughterhouse. The Reaper stood in the center of the room. It was bigger than the one she usually fought. Its armor was dark gray, almost black. Old battle scars covered its body. This creature had survived many fights. Around it lay bodies. Some were students. Some were teachers. They had run straight into its jaws. The Reaper saw Yuna and stopped. Its red eyes focused on her. And then it made a sound that might have been recognition. It remembered her. From Kepler 442b, from the nest she had destroyed. This was the Alpha she thought she had killed. But she had only wounded it. And now it had come for revenge. "Hey," Yuna said, raising her plasma cutter. "Looking for me?" The Reaper charged. Yuna dove to the side. The creature's claws tore through the floor where she had been standing. She rolled and came up running, circling around to get behind it. The Reaper was faster than she expected. It spun and swept its tail at her. She ducked, but not quite fast enough. The tip of the tail caught her shoulder and sent her flying into a wall. Pain exploded through her body. She felt ribs crack. But she was on her feet again in an instant. Pain could be ignored. Pain was just information. She activated the plasma cutter. A beam of blue fire shot out, bright enough to blind. She aimed for the creature's eyes. The Reaper screamed and pulled back. It was hurt, but not dead. Its armor was too thick for the cutter to penetrate. Yuna needed a better plan. She looked around the room. There were support pillars holding up the ceiling. If she could bring one down on the creature, it might be enough. "Come on," she shouted, running toward the nearest pillar. "Follow me." The Reaper chased her. Its footsteps shook the ground. Its breath was hot on her back. At the last moment, Yuna jumped. She grabbed a pillar and climbed, using the cracks in the concrete as handholds. The Reaper crashed into the pillar at full speed. The impact shook the entire room. Cracks spread through the concrete. The pillar began to fall. Yuna jumped clear as tons of stone came down on the Reaper. Dust filled the air. For a moment, there was silence. Then the rubble moved. The Reaper pushed its way out, injured but alive. One of its legs was broken. Black blood dripped from wounds on its side. But it was still standing, still fighting, just like Yuna. "You do not give up," she said, breathing hard. "Neither do I." She was out of options. The plasma cutter was almost empty. Her ribs were broken. She was bleeding from cuts on her arms and face. But she was not done. She grabbed a piece of broken rebar from the ground. It was sharp and heavy. Not ideal, but it would have to work. The Reaper limped toward her. Slower now, but still deadly. Its jaws opened, revealing rows of teeth designed to crush bone. Yuna waited. She counted its steps. She measured its speed. When it lunged, she moved. She stepped into the attack instead of away from it. The creature's jaws closed on empty air. She was under its head, inside its guard. And with all the strength she had left, she drove the rebar up through the soft tissue under its jaw and into its brain. The Reaper made a sound like thunder. Its body convulsed. And then it fell, its weight shaking the ground one final time. Silence. Una stood over the body, panting. Her vision was blurring. Her legs would not stop shaking. She could feel herself falling. Before she hit the ground, arms caught her. "I told you to go to the roof," she whispered. Hannah held her tight. "And I told you that you would not fight alone anymore." Behind Hannah, Una could see other faces. Taiho was there, his expression a mix of fear and awe. Minji was there too, tears streaming down her cheeks. Other students had followed Hana down into the darkness. They had watched her fight. They had seen what she could do. "You are insane," Taiho said, but there was respect in his voice. "That was insane." "Thank you," Una managed. "I think." Medical teams arrived minutes later. Soldiers flooded the building. Una was taken to a hospital where doctors treated her wounds. She had 3 broken ribs, a concussion, and dozens of cuts that needed stitches. But she was alive. Hana stayed by her bed the entire time, holding her hand and refusing to leave. When Una woke up the next day, the first thing she saw was Hana's sleeping face, resting on the edge of her bed. The second thing she saw was a dozen cards and flowers from her classmates. The class that had feared her now called her a hero. But Una did not feel like a hero. She felt like a girl who had done what needed to be done. And for the first time in her life, she felt like maybe that was enough. She fought beasts at dawn, yet the classroom froze when she walked Part 5, Human. After all, the news spread across the galaxy like fire. A Reaper had reached Earth. It had broken through every security measure, traveled across 3 star systems, and attacked a school full of children. The galactic community was shocked. Some were afraid. Others were angry. And then they heard the second part of the story. One girl had stopped it. One human teenager, without weapons or armor, had killed the creature with nothing but a maintenance tool and a piece of metal. She had done in minutes what alien armies could not do in hours. The Galactic Council demanded answers. Representatives from a dozen species filled the Great Hall, speaking in languages that sounded like music and thunder and rain. How did this happen? The Voltari ambassador demanded. How did a Reaper reach Earth undetected? More importantly, said the Croshan representative, how did a human child defeat it alone? Humanity's ambassador stood at the center of the room. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had expected these questions. "We are investigating the security breach," she said. "As for how our citizens survived, I believe the answer is simple. Humans are remarkably hard to kill." The room erupted in noise. Species that had looked down on humanity for centuries were suddenly whispering nervously. The weak, soft, short-lived humans had produced a child who could face a Reaper and win Dot in the back of the room. Representatives from species friendly to Earth simply nodded. They had known this truth for a long time. Humans were not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. But when pushed, they became something terrifying. They became survivors. Meanwhile, on Earth, Una was trying to eat lunch. 3 weeks had passed since the attack. Her ribs had healed. Her cuts had closed. But nothing else was the same. Everywhere she went, people stared. Not with fear this time, but with wonder. Students who had avoided her now tried to sit at her table. Teachers who had watched her suspiciously now smiled and waved. "This is worse than before," Una said to Hana. "You saved their lives. Of course, they want to be near you. I do not know how to handle this," Neither does anyone else who becomes famous. You will figure it out. Taiho approached their table with his usual smile. But it looked different now. Less practiced, more genuine. "Hey," he said. "A few of us wanted to say sorry for how we treated you before." Yuna looked at him. "You were afraid. Fear makes people do strange things. That is not an excuse. No, but it is an explanation. I do not hold it against you." Taiho seemed surprised. He had expected anger, maybe resentment. He had not expected forgiveness. "Thanks," he said. "That means a lot." Even Minji came to apologize. She cried while doing it, which made Yuna uncomfortable. Yuna was still not good at handling emotions. "I was horrible to you," Minji sobbed. "And you still saved me. You saved all of us." "I did what I was trained to do," Yuna said. "It was not personal. That almost makes it worse." Yuna did not understand, but she accepted the apology anyway. Hana told her later that this was the right thing to do. 1 month after the attack, Yuna received a message from Command. They wanted her back. Her performance against the Reaper had proven she was still an effective operative. They offered her a promotion, better equipment, and a new squad. She could return to the life she knew. The simple life. The clear life. Kill enemies, protect allies, sleep. Repeat. She declined. The officer on the other end of the call was confused. "Agent Yuna, you are one of our best. The galaxy needs you." "The galaxy has thousands of operatives," Yuna replied. "It only has one of me. And I have decided that I want to be more than just a weapon." There was a long pause. Then the officer sighed. "Very well. But if you ever change your mind, the door is open." The call ended. Yuna sat in her room and felt something strange. It took her a moment to identify it. Peace. For the first time in her life, she had chosen her own path. She had said no to the people who made her. She had said yes to herself. It felt terrifying. It felt wonderful. Weeks turned into months. Yuna slowly became better at being a student. She learned to laugh at jokes, even when she did not fully understand them. She learned to talk about things that did not involve combat. She learned that not every problem needed to be solved with violence. Hannah was always there, patient and kind. Their friendship deepened into something unbreakable. They studied together, ate together, and spent long evenings on the rooftop watching the stars. One day, a surprise arrived at the academy. Do-hyun and Himin walked through the front gate, wearing civilian clothes for the first time in their lives. Yuna ran to meet them before her brain caught up with her legs. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. "We quit," Himin said with his usual grin. "Turns out, fighting aliens is boring without you." "That is not true. Fighting aliens is never boring." "Okay, you got me. We just missed you." Do-hyun, as always, said nothing. He just placed a hand on Yuna's shoulder and squeezed gently. In their shared language, that meant everything. "You cannot just quit the defense corps," Yuna said. "We did not quit exactly," Himin admitted. "We requested a transfer to educational leave. Same as you." The paperwork was terrible, but Do-hyun threatened the colonel and suddenly everything moved faster. Yuna looked at Do-hyun. "You threatened the colonel?" He shrugged. "I cannot believe this." "Believe it. We are enrolled starting next week. Hana already agreed to help us catch up on coursework." Yuna turned to Hana, who was standing nearby with a huge smile on her face. "You knew about this?" "They contacted me a month ago. I helped with the arrangements. And you did not tell me?" Surprises are supposed to be surprising. Yuna wanted to be angry, but she could not. Instead, she laughed. A real laugh, loud and uncontrolled. It sounded strange coming from her, but it felt right. They were all together now. Her squad, her friend, her life. Everything she had lost when she joined the Defense Corps was coming back in new forms. A year later, a new student arrived at the academy. A young boy, maybe 13, with the same empty eyes Yuna had carried on her first day. He was another operative, another weapon trying to become human. During lunch, he sat alone. Nobody approached him. Everyone was too afraid. Yuna watched him for a while. Then she picked up her tray and walked to his table. "Hi," she said. "I am Yuna. Mind if I sit here?" The boy looked at her with suspicion. "Why?" "Because I was like you once. And someone sat with me when nobody else would." It made a difference. Slowly, the suspicion in his eyes faded. He nodded. While Yuna sat down. Across the cafeteria, Hana smiled. The cycle continued. The broken helped the broken. The lost guided the lost. That was what it meant to be human, Yuna realized. Not strength. Not violence. Not the ability to kill. Connection. Kindness. The choice to reach out when it was easier to walk away. Later that day, the new student found Yuna in the library. He looked nervous, uncertain. "I have a question," he said. "Okay, how do you do it?" "The fighting, I mean. Everyone says you are not afraid. That you face monsters without hesitation." Yuna remembered a night on a rooftop years ago. A conversation with a girl who saw her as more than a weapon. She remembered the stars and the cold air and the feeling of being understood for the first time. She smiled. "I am always afraid," she said. "Every time. Every fight. The fear never goes away." The boy frowned. "Then how do you win?" "I move anyway. That is the secret. Not being fearless, but being afraid and choosing to act despite it. Anyone can fight when they are not scared. But humans, we fight hardest when we are terrified. That is what makes us special. That is what makes us dangerous. And that is what makes us human." The boy thought about this. Then, slowly, he nodded. "I think I understand." "Good. Now let me introduce you to some friends. They are strange, but you will get used to them." She led him across the library to where Hana, Dohan, and Hemin were waiting. They welcomed the new arrival with open arms, just as they had welcomed Yuna so long ago. Outside the window, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Tomorrow, Yuna would wake up early. She would exercise. She would go to class. She would study and laugh and live. She would be human. And for the first time in her life, that was enough.